Well, why don't we get started? If that's okay. Mr. Lesser, we're ready to get started. We're ready to get started. Maybe before we get started, if someone would like to get drinks or anything like that? Yeah. Well, I mean, you can certainly get up. If you need to get up and get some drink, I won't be offended. I'm a Navy guy. Happens all the time. Yeah. Well, what I thought I'd do is tell you a little bit about myself, my family, and kind of why we're in this race. And certainly after I'm done talking briefly, I'd like to really entertain some questions and see what's on your mind. You want to use a microphone?
How would you?
Okay, is that better? Okay, great. I get to practice my karaoke out here. Can we play the piano? We'll call him later. I'm Martin Sepulveda. I'm running for Congress in this district because I live here. It's my home. I was raised in Arizona. My family's been part of the East Valley since the 1870s when they homesteaded at Rural University in Tempe, 160 acres. I graduated from Arizona State University. I met my wife there. She and I raised our family in Chandler. I started my company there, and I was elected twice to city council. I'm a military guy. I enlisted in the Marine Corps when I was 17. I'm now 52, and I'm a commander of the Navy Reserves. My current assignment is in Coronado, California, a nice place to be, with SEAL Team 17. I'm also a combat vet. And I tell you, since 1999, the only time I've been in this country the whole year was 2004. So I'm happy my wife hasn't changed the locks. But I can tell you, as a combat vet, I have seen some of the best and some of the very worst you see in the world. A lot of us haven't over the years. Each time I came back to Arizona, my home, I vowed to do whatever I could to make this place better. I'm a native Arizona, and my family goes back a long way here, and I can tell you, I care very deeply about our community, our state, and our nation. I'm also a small business owner. I've had my own company for about 10, 12 years now. Before that, I worked for a very large construction company, McCarthy Contractors, out of St. Louis, but they've been here for a number of years. And before that, I worked for the Department of Commerce, doing business development. So my total time in business development with public and private sector is over 20 years. My biggest takeaway from that is that government doesn't create jobs. The best it can do is create conditions for success. A reasonable regulatory environment, a predictable tax environment, and get out of the way. Let the private sector determine how they best invest their dollars and create those jobs. Let's not spend time and energy and money, government money, our money, trying to figure out what we need to invest in. That's the private sector's, that's their duty to do that. The 2 terms I served in the Chandler City Council, they were non-consecutive terms. I point that out for just one reason. I'm not a career politician. But it was valuable time for me because what we ended up doing in Chandler, like many cities, Mesa is no different, you interact with your constituency, those people who elected you. That's always going to be valuable. You're spending their money. You need to know what their thoughts are. You know, we didn't always get along either on that council in Chandler. No council ever does. But the one thing that becomes most important for any successful city or town or state or nation is to be fiscally responsible. It's not our money. It's taxpayer money. It's a citizen's money. We need to be mindful and respectful of that. And in Chandler, a very fiscally sound city, we were able to do that in spite of some of the disagreements. We balanced every budget. 8 different budgets I was a part of. Every budget was balanced. They ranged from $500 million in the late 90s. It used to be a lot of money. The last budget I had to do with was 2007, 2008. That was $1.2 billion. Those budgets were balanced. We had cash reserves. We even lowered taxes on a couple of occasions. I think that's what government does and what it should do. Be fiscally responsible and mindful of whose money it really is. That in Chandler, and I think some other cities, it only happens because there's citizen input. People care about the community. And once you get that input from people that voted you in, typically most people are going to pay attention to that. So let's move past Chandler and talk about some overarching things. Jobs and the economy. That's one of the reasons we're in this race. I've got a pretty decent history of public and private sector job experience. In the past several months, we've heard the economy's getting better. The recovery is underway, and job, except for this past month, the unemployment is trending down as well. With 69,000 jobs created last month nationally, guess what happened to the unemployment average? National, it went up. Okay, that's about 8.1, 8.2 right now. That's not the whole picture. So looking at this district, CD9, our unemployment rate is a little bit better than that. Around 7% unemployment. That's still not the whole picture. That's just unemployment. When you look at the folks that are underemployed, meaning they're working 2 or more jobs, about 5%, 5.2%. And we consider those people who just stopped looking, 2%, a little bit more than 2%. Those numbers continue to adjust, but that's the whole picture. So you have a percentage rate of underemployed, or those who stopped looking, almost 14%. What that equates to in numbers, 47 to 48,000 people just in this district, are either unemployed, underemployed, or just stopped looking. That's not much of a recovery. Debt and deficit spending. This past December, for the first time since World War II, our debt surpassed our GDP. What we owe as a nation is more than we produce in a year. That's not sustainable. It really should have been a wake-up call for a lot of people, irrespective of your political affiliation. It should have been a wake-up call. It didn't receive that much national attention. The president put together a non-binding bipartisan debt commission. It was a bust. Nothing happened. There are some proposals on I think probably both sides of the aisle to talk about the debt and reduce the deficit spending the debt, but there isn't any traction. Probably because it's an election year. It's a big election year. But the reality is, when unemployment goes back up like it has, it was trending downward. I mean, 8.8% is still a high number, but when it starts trending back upward, this close to the election, I'll bet you a nickel right now we're going to hear more about another stimulus package. Okay, raising the debt ceiling one more time. It didn't work the first time. And guess what? President Obama was another person that tried the stimulus packages. So let's get the partisanship out of this thing. It didn't work. But doing that right now, those two proposals, they've got to be as ridiculous as they are dangerous. We've got to deal with the debt and deficit spending. If we don't deal with that, I would say that's more dangerous to our sovereignty than any foreign military, any foreign nation. We've got to get our arms around that. So we can say this election is about the economy, but it's not. It's about people. All of us here, our family, our friends, our neighbors. How we come together and move forward as Americans and deal with this crisis. We're in a crisis. Whether or not we believe that government's grown too big, it's too costly, too ineffective. Whether or not we believe, as our founding fathers did, that governance is best, which governs the least. We're all Arizonans. We're here for a reason. And I would tell you, part of our culture, part of the historic nature of the West is we're very independent, very self-reliant people. We don't need government in every facet of our life. When there's challenges, we stand shoulder to shoulder and face them head on. I guess I go back to owning up to who I am and being from this place. You take ownership of it because your family from it. You want to make it better. My family has been here for almost 150 years. I take pride in that. And actually, in this district, oddly enough, I take pride in that. I'm grateful that my wife and I were born and raised here, but also we raised our family here. My son and daughter were both born at Williams Air Force Base, and we're still an operating Air Force Base. I feel blessed that after 6 different combat tours in Afghanistan and Iraq, my son and I made it back home to Chandler safely. I know how precious our liberty and our freedom is. I know it's worth fighting for. I'm not afraid to lead. I have the experience it takes to serve Arizona in Congress, and I'm ready to do that now. So I appreciate your time. I thank you for your attention. I look forward to any questions. Yes, sir.
Okay. When I was in college back in the 1970s, I worked in Yellowstone National Park as a park gator and park international. The first 2 years, one of the things they did was collect was on campground tracks. Now, I know when in case of a lot of the national parks, they're having difficulty with funding. But I understand that those funds that are budgeted for campground fees or entrance fees do not automatically go back to the national parks and stuff like that. You know they have problems like maintenance, having enough personnel and stuff like that. Of course, in 1964, you had looking for that, they had the land conservation budget. Some way that national parks or national monuments can take some of that money that they collect, even national forests, and use that for proper maintenance, proper enough for personnel and stuff like that.
The short answer is yes. But I would ask this one question. What government program have you ever seen that doesn't start increasing in cost? Maybe part of the solution is privatization. I think it's very important to have national parks and those things. We all take pride in knowing we have, whether it's recently with the Grand Canyon. But if it's cost too much for the government to maintain these parks, we need to look for another solution, public-private partnerships. Okay? The bottom line is, unless you can tell me differently, anyone can tell me differently, what federal program exists that started out at $1 and maybe cost $2 or $3 now versus $20. I say $2 or $3 to adjust for inflation. That's what the economists always do anyway. I don't believe that the federal government does anything that's cost effective. There's something it has to do. Let's take the military. Constitutionally, that's the federal government's job to do that. Okay, and I think they do a good job. I'm biased. I've been in the military for over 30 years, grew up in the military. But I'll tell you this. DOD was cut by $500 billion. We're still in a war. We haven't collapsed. You know what that tells me? We had some fat in the Defense Department budget that was cut. Can we sustain another $500 billion? I don't think so personally. I don't want to see that. But my point is, the Defense Department is necessary. We're in a war. We should fight to win always. Okay? We were cut by $500 billion. We haven't collapsed. So it wasn't run as efficiently, as cost effectively as it probably could be. So going back to Park Service, I think there's nothing wrong with seeing how that could be privatized.
You and I might disagree on that. Because I've seen in cases like in Yellowstone, they had in 1907, about 20 years, they had a concessionaire. Really trying for service.
But a concessionaire isn't maintenance. A concession is selling things, maybe a restaurant vendor.
But you're talking about privatization.
But sir, your question was maintaining the property. Okay, so if you have a specific contract with this group to maintain the property, guess what? That's pretty tangible. This needs to be done. It's for this price, this fixed price. If it's not done, guess what? Figure someone out, find someone else who will do it. Concessionaire is a little bit different. I mean, that's service. It's optional. People don't have to buy the goods and services from a concessionaire. Okay. We might still disagree, but that's my take on it. I don't really believe the government in a lot of cases is the most cost-effective way to do business. If it was, we might not be so broke right now. Any other questions? Yes,
You're
ma'am.
hearing all these things about Medicare, AAMA, and
Yeah.
things. What can you tell us about
There's a lot of
that?
scare tactics out there. What I know is this. The retirees, are they entitlements or did you?
Sir, I didn't hear.
The retirees that have benefits,
Okay.
I don't think they're entitlements. I think you earn them. Those people on Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, they're locked in. That can't go away. Any reasonable plan that's out there right now has got to say, these are the people that are receiving benefits right now. They're going to continue to receive benefits. Beyond that, my age, I'm 52. These young lads here. Hey, beyond that, let's have a very, very honest conversation because the benefits won't be there as we know them today. Social Security, enacted in 1940. 4 people were participating, every one person received benefits. Okay, it makes sense, right? The average age of a male worker, because most workers were males, that retired was at 68. That male worker didn't live 10 years after retirement. Okay, so 4 to 1, an older retirement age, and the age that this male expired wasn't 78, probably 72, 73, 75. Okay, so fast forward, 1960, the baby boomers entered the workforce. Okay, it was good because a lot of people in the workforce, but the manufacturing base was contracting, it was shrinking. Okay, so the good news was the workforce grew. Okay, more females in the workforce, baby boomers, but that ratio went down by 25%. Now 3 people were contributing, there was 1 person that was receiving benefits. What else happened? Cost rose. Life expectancies were extended. Cost, life expectancy, inflation. 3 to 1. So you lost 25%. The benefits actually got better. Spousal survival benefits. Okay? So more benefits were out there, but less people put it in the system. Okay? The baby boomers started retiring in 2008. The biggest tranche of workers that went into the workforce are now retiring. I mean, some estimates are 10,000 retirees a day. That's a lot of people. Well, but we lost 25% of what the initial program was laid out for, put it into the system. The current trends continue within 20, 25 years, that ratio putting into Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, 2 to 1. Guess what? You can't do it. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. There's some great plans out there that talk about what to do. You know, the Ryan plan talks about it. Citizens Bowl talks about how much do you cut, how much do you increase taxes. Sepulveda says, let's grow the economic base. We don't have the capacity to raise taxes or cut taxes to make a real difference. What we do have the ability to do is bring some of that money that's offshore right now with manufacturers. Why? Because it's too expensive to manufacture in the United States. The effective corporate income tax, federal and state, is 40%. 40% of what they produce right now is taxed. In Ireland, it's 15. Israel's, I think, close to 20. I think the average offshore cost to produce for a manufacturer, and I'm pointing out manufacturer reason, we'll get that a little bit later, it's about 25%. Okay, that's almost half of what it costs to produce here. We're still we still buy a lot. We're still a consumer nation, but what we buy is built somewhere else. There's a reason for that. We're not competitive. So rather than talk about cutting taxes or raising taxes, why don't we talk about growing the economy? You know, anecdotally, when I was on the Chandler City Council, we had a little company called Intel in West Chandler. They wanted to expand. They needed our help to expand because the tax environment was too onerous. So there's federal and state legislation that allows us to lower that tax rate. But what does it do? It takes away, because I mean, when you lower something, it takes away from somebody else. In this case, it was a school district. If you want to have an educated and qualified workforce, you can't shortchange the students. What we said to Intel is this: look, we can lower your secondary property tax that pays for the schools. If you go to the school district and find out from them what they need from you, Intel, to make themselves whole when they lose 80% of their tax base. What they did is they offered computers, tutoring to the students and the teachers, and other services. The bottom line is the government, the city council in Chandler, we got out of the way and said, look, we'd like to do this for you. Because if we do this, you're going to invest $1 billion in our community and create 1,800 jobs. That's a big thing. But we can't do that with a clear conscience unless you talk to the school district and figure out how you guys make the deal, how you guys make them whole. Because they're going to be the beneficiaries of less taxes, secondary taxes, that we allow you to take advantage of. Well, they did that. Okay, so the success story is this. That was in 1996. Today, they're expanding. $5 billion. That plan is $5 billion, 1,000 workers. Today, since 1996, Intel is invested over $15 billion in Chandler. About 8,000 to 9,000 primary manufacturing jobs in Chandler. They don't all live in Chandler, but that's what the initial investment is. So there's a multiplier effect. With manufacturers, what you have is this. For every one manufacturer, you've got 3 to 4, some say 7, that's a big number, of other jobs that are created because of suppliers and vendors that primary manufacturer. We'll just call it 4. So the multiplier is huge. And why is that? Because we said, look, make your deal. The government's going to get out of the way. And once you've made your deal with the school district, we can lower those taxes legally, state and federal regulations. So $15 billion is a hard thing to argue against. So our tax structure needs to be taken down, corporate tax structure. And I would say 70% of the jobs in the United States are created by small business owners. There's a thing called an S corporation. I have that. We're still taxed pretty high as well. So again, the incentive on the small business owner is no different than large manufacturers. Let's lower the effective tax rate. So we can be competitive, and we need to be competitive. And rather than talk about raising taxes, lowering taxes, taking away from the seniors, which is a scare tactic, I don't like that. Because any reasonable person that you want to elect is going to take into consideration those people are on benefits because they earn them. They're not entitled. They're not entitlements. They've earned those benefits, and they're on them right now. You can't take them away. But again, the honest conversation has to happen with maybe someone who's 55 or younger. This is what we're looking at. Unless we radically change the job base, the economic base, so more workers are there to put into this retirement system, this medical system, it's not going to work. Okay, answer the question. Yes, sir.
In a lot of cases, what are you going to do about the Social Security trust plan? The government has diverted money from that trust plan for government expenses, stuff like that. And that's part of the reason why I think you've got problems with people wondering about their Social Security or Medicare.
How many times did trust fund been swept? Have you heard that term? They swept money from the trust fund, and they're supposed to put it back. Have they done that? Is anybody there to do that with? No. It doesn't exist. I'm not going to say we're broke, but I can tell you one thing, we can't balance our books, which we can't. We're spending more than we've taken in. We can make all the promises once, IOUs, whether it's Social Security or anything else. The money isn't there. It's just not there. That's part of the honest conversation we've got to have. It's great to have an IOU. My business, I've got a small development company. I need to really watch who I work with because in the development world, people come and go every day. So I don't really need their IOU. I want to know that they can pay. I'm telling you right now, if we're spending more than we take in, and it didn't just happen, okay, I'm not here to blame President Obama. It happened before President Obama. We all need to take ownership of that and fix it, not pretend that these IOUs are going to be good. Because they're not. We don't have the money. And really, it's simple math. To maintain the program that was started in 1940, which was a pretty solid program, we need to go back to at least a 4-to-1 ratio. But we're not there. And the big reason we're not there is because our economic base is strong. It doesn't work. If we want it to work, we've got to grow the economic base. Do you have a question? Oh, okay. Well, come on, more questions. Yes, sir.
You'll be, people not understanding because you're just using it.
I'm allowed now, though. You tell me I don't have any stand, but I'm telling you I'm allowed now.
Yeah, that doesn't count.
Okay.
We got a lot of them now.
Okay. Which one?
Well, what I'm thinking is, you're gonna go in there without any stimuli, trying to get somebody to do something, and all you are doing is do something.
Yeah.
They're gonna oppose you, no matter what you propose, you will oppose.
But even the ones that are in there now started as newcomers.
Yeah. But to your point, that's a valid point. But I would say the exception I'm aware of is David Schweiker. This is his first or second term. Is it second term? Schweiker, second term?
This will be.
This will be his second term.
He's a freshman.
Yeah, it's a great question. He charged right away. He got some great committees. I think he's on a budget committee. He's making great headway. David Schweiker, I've known him for a long time. I might be a little biased, but he's a businessman. He's been elected to the state. He was in the state legislature, and I think he was a county assessor before that. He's got some great business experience. And based on that, as a freshman, he got some great committees. So I guess, and I appreciate your question. I don't totally disagree with it. But I'm not afraid to lead. I've got a lot of experience packed into 52 years. The problem that we have in Congress is that not all those guys are businessmen. Okay, again, I'm not here to bag on the Democrats, because I got a couple Republicans I could bag on, but the Vice President, how old was he when he got to office? Anybody know? 28. After law school. He's not the exception. My friend John McCain, he's a bit older than 28, but he left the Navy and got elected to the Congress and the Senate. That's, God bless him. But is he a businessman? He might not be happy that I would say that, but I'm asking the question. He's never run a business. So those guys are the rule, not the exception. Okay, I've run a business. I've been shot at in combat, so that's not fun either. I don't want to run to combat for another war just because it seems like the thing to do. We've got to moderate that. I tell you what bothered me in the Republican presidential debates was everyone talking about going to war in Iran. Like, wait a minute, we barely finished Iraq. I got to be there for that shooting match. We're still in Afghanistan. That's not done yet. And now we're talking about going to war in Iran. That doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me. But there's only one person who said, let's not talk about that. Let's focus on our economy. It's funny, how wars have been paid. It used to be paid with whiskey taxes. I think that was, that might have been the Revolutionary War. It was paid with a whiskey tax. But there's always a tax to pay for war. Well, guess what? We can't be taxed anymore. We don't have the money. So for no other reason, let's not talk about wars, because we're not done with the one we're in right now. Let's figure out how to really fix our economy. But back to your question, yeah, I would be a freshman congressman. I'm not a shy guy. I've led people in the military. I've been a leader on Chandler City Council. We did some great things. I'm not saying just because I've been a councilman in Chandler that I qualify as being in Congress, but it sure doesn't hurt. I've got experience. The thing we did best in Chandler is this. We talked to the private sector guys who were developing those jobs, creating those jobs. We didn't think we did it. They're there with their investment. How can we make this investment better? They told us. We adjusted our behavior. We adjusted, our focus to what they needed to make our community better. It goes back in Chandler. It's a great success story. I am biased, but again, 1980, less than 20,000 people. Today, almost 250,000 people. From a farming town to a high-tech city. How do you argue with that? Republicans and Democrats have been mayors during that time. What they had in common was this. They were all fiscally responsible. They didn't spend what they didn't have. We've got to get back to that. That's not a secret. You can't spend what you don't have. So yeah, freshmen, you're always going to be challenged as a freshman. But guess what? I like challenges. Absolutely. If I didn't think I could deliver results, I wouldn't be spending my time or yours today, and I wouldn't be spending time on the campaign trail away from my company. I'm able to do this because I've done some very basic things in my company. Didn't spend what I didn't have. When I bought property, I didn't overpay. I didn't buy on some whim because it looked like a great place. I bought based on a business plan. It made sense. And again, going back to the Congress, I want to be a lot of businessmen in Congress. It's part of the problem. Anything else?
Good work.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm not as young as I think I am. Yeah. Thank you very much. You're welcome. Well, if there's no more questions, I guess we can serve some lemonade here. Or play the piano. Well, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. If you'd like to keep in touch with us, we've got, you can sign up. We'll send you emails or correspond how you'd like, and we really would be happy to hear from you. If you've all experienced in this room, we certainly don't want to not take advantage of that. If you want to share your thoughts with us. Thank you very much.